In this lesson, we're going to take a look at the wall tool in Autodesk Revit and all of the features and options that go along with it. So first of all, I've got a blank project here and I want to begin by creating a floor plan. I'm going to start by using my wall tool. So you'll see that when I click on the wall tool, a couple of things happen. This options bar will become available, and then I'll be able to select different types of walls here. So again, I'll hit the wall. If we take a look at the properties palette now, I've got a basic generic 6-inch thick wall. I can choose my type selector and select a different type of wall. I've used the residential template here, so I get layers and walls that make sense for a residential constructed house, such as brick on wood stud or wood siding on wood stud. Also, if you take a look at the options bar up here, you'll see a lot of the same information in the options bar that you do in the properties. So for example, the location line is set to wall center line for both. The height is set to unconnected and 20 feet in both areas. So a lot of times you can change information either in the options bar or in the properties palette, whichever you feel most comfortable with. So first of all, as I look and accept the defaults, let me first of all choose a different wall type. Let's say I'm doing a wood siding on a wood stud. And before I go into that and actually create it, let's figure out what exactly this wall is. So I'm going to hit the Edit Type button here, and it brings up the properties for this wall. And if I choose Edit Structure here in this dialog box, I can see exactly what this wall is made of. I can even hit the Preview button here in this dialog box to see all of the layers. So what I've got is a 2x6, which is 5.5-inch thick for my structure. And then I can see on the exterior side here, I've got a 1/2-inch plywood, and then just a vapor barrier membrane here, and then 3/4-inch siding on the outside. So that's what I'm seeing here in this area. And then towards the inside, again, I've got a vapor barrier to keep moisture out, and then I've got a gypsum wall board, which is just sheetrock or drywall, if you will, and it's a 1/2-inch thick. So that's what I can see in here as well. So as you can see here, it gives me a total wall thickness of 7.25 inches when I take all of those things into account. Now when I'm getting ready to draw, sometimes if I just click on screen, it's hard to tell if which side's the inside and which side's the outside. So I actually usually prefer, as I hit escape here, to change my location line to finish face exterior. So you'll notice there's also core face exterior. In that case, you're just drawing to the 2x6 structure on the inside. Finish face is going to go to the outside of the brick or the siding, whatever it is that you've got there. So as I start drawing, I can see the mouse here is on the exterior side. If you tap the space bar on your keyboard, it'll actually flip your wall direction. So you'll notice also some temporary dimensions as I'm drawing, and typically want to pay attention and draw kind of in the neighborhood of what your final dimensions are going to be, but you don't have to worry about getting them precise. We'll take a look at how to make precise dimensions a little bit later. So I'm just going to create a simple house here. And you'll notice that tracking happens when I come over here to the left. It lines up with the wall up above, letting me create a nice finished shape here. So I'm going to go ahead and escape. Now obviously I just drew with the defaults there. Also, another thing that's important to note is that I drew within all of these elevation markers, and that's important because I want to actually be able to see the building when I go to these elevations. So let's take a look at the default 3D view. And I can see my building, and it's kind of odd. I thought I was on the finished face exterior, but I must have drawn the wrong way. No big deal, because I have this handy flip arrow that I can come back to. So when you click on a wall, this flip arrow is always on the exterior surface of the wall. So I'm going to click this to flip it out. So that's one way to check and see if your wall is drawn the correct way. Just flip it until that arrow is on the outside. Now that did adjust my dimensions a little bit, and again, I'm not too worried about that right now. But now when I look at it, I can actually see my siding is on the outside like it is supposed to be. So you also notice that I just basically drew these at the default height. If I select one of these walls, I can see its properties over here and what that height is. It was set to an unconnected height of 20 feet. And I instead would rather create maybe some 10-foot walls. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these walls. And I'm just clicking and dragging around all of them to pick them all up at once. And then I'm just going to change the value to 10 feet here. Now I don't really notice anything here in my floor plan, but when I switch back to my 3D view, I can see that I have the shorter walls now. In addition to specifying a height value, you can also connect the walls to a level. So if I come down to, say, my north elevation here, any of the elevations will do. Let's say I do want these walls to actually be higher up. I want them to go up to the roof level. So I'm going to go back to my floor plan here. I'll close this 3D view as well. And again, I'm just clicking and dragging to make a window around all of this. And instead of setting the top constraint to unconnected, I'm going to tell it to go up to level roof. And then now watch what happens when I go to the north elevation. You can see that it goes all the way up here to the roof level. So that works great, but let's say that this is only going to be a one-level house. So I don't even need a second floor. I'm going to click on this second floor level and delete it. Revit's warning me that you're not just deleting the level, you're actually deleting the associated views, and I'm fine with that. I don't have a second floor, so I'm going to click OK. And now you'll see that the wall heights are driven by this roof level. No longer are they driven by the values and the properties. In fact, when I click on the wall, I can see that it's 18 feet, but it's grayed out. I can't change it. So instead what I'll do is I'll adjust the roof level. So if I want to set this maybe to 12 feet and enter, you can see that the roof level goes down and all of the walls go with it. So that's the big difference between doing an unconnected height and connecting it to a level. If you connect it to a level, the level changes, all the walls change as well. So going back to a floor plan view here, let's take a look at the level of detail. So earlier I had to flip my walls so that they were arranged in the proper direction. What I want to do now is show the actual layers of the wall, and I'm going to do that down here with my level of detail button. It's this little white square right next to the 1/4 inch equals a foot scale. When I click on this, I am currently in coarse detail, which just gives me a double lined wall. I can choose medium or fine. They're both pretty much the same in this case. And I'll actually be able to see some of the layers in here. So I can see the plywood and I can see the siding out here. The sheetrock is in here too, but the line is kind of thick, so it kind of shows up just as one thick line here. But that's another way that you can look and make sure that your walls are oriented properly by actually taking a look at the layers that are inside them. One more thing to note about just floor plans in general, and that's what's called the view range. So if I take a look at the floor plan itself, so that means I've got nothing selected on screen, so my properties are showing the floor plan. If I scroll down here almost to the end, I'm going to see this tool called view range, and I can click the edit button. So the important value here is this cut plane. It says it's 4 feet above the associated level, first floor in this case. So what that means is when you're looking at a floor plan, if you imagine yourself sitting in the room that you're in right now, and you came up 4 feet off the ground and just cut right through the walls and removed everything above it, that's basically what we're looking at when we have a floor plan. So if you have a high window, maybe if you're in a basement and you have a window that's up high on top of the wall, that won't show up because it's above the 4 foot level. So it's important to note that we will see some windows later on that end up being above our view range and make it a little difficult to see them in the floor plan. So again, obviously you're going to get into some tutorials, but feel free to come in here and explore a little bit, choose the wall tool, try out some different wall types, also try out some different heights. You can connect them to a level, you can try out some different unconnected heights, change whether you're on the interior or exterior. So let's say I want finish face exterior this time, and now I can actually see that I'm on the brick side. So you can see the different different materials here, this cross-hatching means that that is brick. And if I switch it to 3D, then I can see the brick material there. So again, that's just a quick look at walls in Autodesk Revit.